"Mom, I found you." The words came from 6-year-old Lily Moretti so softly that, for one impossible second, even the clinking glasses inside Manhattan's most exclusive restaurant seemed to disappear. Elena Brooks froze beside table 12 with a silver tray pressed against her black server's vest, her curvy body suddenly rigid as the little girl in a white lace dress stared up at her, with tears gathering in enormous brown eyes. Elena had never seen the child before in her life. At least, she was certain she hadn't. Across the table, Dominic Moretti slowly lowered his wineglass. At 37, Dominic was the kind of man people recognized without introductions. Wealthy, controlled, and feared in circles respectable society pretended did not exist. He was the head of the Moretti crime family, a man whose name could end negotiations before they began. Tonight, however, he had come to Bella Vita for something far more ordinary and far more uncomfortable. A blind date arranged by his aunt with Vanessa Hale, a glamorous Manhattan socialite who had spent the last 20 minutes explaining why children needed discipline and men like Dominic needed a woman who could represent them properly. Dominic had barely listened. Since betrayal had taught him that affection usually came with a price, he trusted contracts more than promises, and silence more than charm. Lily was the exception. His daughter was the only person alive who could reach past the cold wall he showed everyone else, which was precisely why Dominic had reluctantly brought her tonight when her sitter cancelled. Elena, meanwhile, had been working a double shift since 10 that morning. At 29, she had mastered the art of smiling when her feet hurt, apologizing when customers were wrong, and pretending not to hear the cruel little comments people made when they thought a plus-size waitress should somehow be invisible. She needed the job. Rent was due in 4 days. Her mother's prescription had gone up again, and Elena had exactly $83 left after groceries. But exhaustion had never made her unkind. 10 minutes earlier, she had quietly slipped a free bowl of strawberries to Lily after noticing the child pushing away an untouched dessert. "No chocolate?" Elena had asked. Lily had shaken her head. "It makes my stomach hurt." Elena had immediately removed the plate and brought fruit without making the girl feel difficult. Dominic had noticed. Vanessa had noticed something else. "You really should be more careful squeezing between tables," Vanessa said when Elena returned with the check folder. Her eyes traveled deliberately over Elena's figure. "This restaurant is crowded enough already." Elena's cheeks warmed, but she kept her voice professional. "I'll keep that in mind, ma'am." Dominic's expression changed almost imperceptibly. "Vanessa, one word. Quiet." Warning enough that the smile vanished from Vanessa's face. Elena looked at him then, truly looked at him, and found no amusement in his eyes, only restraint. She had been mocked enough times to recognize when someone enjoyed watching her shrink. Dominic Moretti did not. That unsettled her more than cruelty would have. Elena turned to leave, but a passing busboy clipped the corner of her tray. A glass tipped, splashing water across the white tablecloth. Vanessa shot backward. "Unbelievable." "It was an accident," Elena said, reaching for a towel. "Of course it was." Vanessa stood and dabbed one spotless sleeve anyway. "Maybe this kind of place requires a little more grace than everyone can manage." Elena stopped wiping. For years, she had swallowed words to keep jobs, friendships, relationships, peace. Tonight, something inside her refused. She straightened her shoulders. "If you're unhappy with my service, I'll get my manager, but I won't apologize for taking up space." Dominic looked at her sharply, not because she had challenged Vanessa, but because Elena's voice trembled and she still refused to lower her eyes. Then Lily climbed down from her chair. "Lily," Dominic said, but the girl was already moving. She crossed the few feet between them and wrapped both arms around Elena's waist. Elena nearly dropped the towel. Lily pressed her cheek against her and began crying. "Mom," she whispered again. Vanessa went pale. Nearby diners turned. Elena's hands hovered helplessly above the child's shoulders. "Sweetheart, I think you have me confused with somebody." Lily pulled back and stared at Elena, as though the answer were obvious. No, you're the lady from my dreams. Dominic rose so slowly that every instinct Elena possessed told her this man was dangerous when surprised. He stepped closer, his gaze moving from his daughter's tearful face to Elena's stunned one. Then Lily reached beneath the collar of her dress and pulled out a tiny silver locket Dominic had never seen before. She opened it. Elena's breath stopped. Inside was a photograph of a young woman standing beside a hospital bed, and although the picture had been taken years ago, there was no mistaking the face. It was hers. Dominic Moretti did not touch the locket. He only stared at the photograph as if someone had placed a weapon on the table between them. "Where did you get that?" His voice was low enough that Lily stopped crying, but Vanessa immediately stepped closer. "Dominic, this is ridiculous. She probably planted it." Elena flinched, not from the accusation, but from the ease with which Vanessa said it. Before Elena could answer, Dominic turned his head. "Leave." Vanessa blinked. "Excuse me, the date is over." He did not raise his voice. He did not need to. Two men in dark suits near the restaurant entrance were suddenly on their feet, and Elena realized with a chill that they had been watching Dominic the entire evening. Vanessa's face burned red. "You're choosing a waitress you met 10 minutes ago over me." Dominic's eyes hardened. "I'm choosing not to sit beside someone who insults my daughter's judgment and another woman's dignity." The silence around table 12 became absolute. Vanessa grabbed her purse and walked away under the gaze of half the dining room. Elena should have felt satisfied. Instead, her stomach tightened when the restaurant manager, Mr. Caldwell, hurried over. "Miss Brooks, perhaps you should finish your shift in the kitchen while we resolve this." Elena understood immediately. A wealthy guest had caused a scene, but the waitress would be removed. She reached for her tray. Dominic's hand settled over the check folder before she could take it. "She stays." Caldwell forced a smile. "Mr. Moretti, I'm simply trying to protect the comfort of our guests." "Then protect the employee who was humiliated in front of them." Dominic looked around once, and several people suddenly became fascinated with their plates. "And if anyone here has a problem with Miss Brooks taking up space, they can bring their problem to me." Elena stared at him. Men had defended her before, but usually in private, softly enough that nobody important would hear. Dominic Moretti had just defended her in a room where everyone heard. Somehow that frightened her more than being mocked. "I can speak for myself," she said quietly. One of Dominic's bodyguards looked almost offended. Dominic did not. Something close to respect crossed his face. I noticed. Lily was still holding Elena's hand. Elena crouched so they were eye level. "Can I see the picture, sweetheart?" Lily nodded and placed the locket in her palm. Elena studied the faded photograph. The younger version of herself looked exhausted, wearing blue hospital scrubs beneath an oversized cardigan. Behind her was a crib and a pale green wall decorated with painted clouds. Elena's heartbeat stumbled. "Straint. Agnes Children's Center," she whispered. Dominic leaned closer. "You worked there?" "For 3 months." Elena swallowed. "Not as a nurse. I was 23 and taking night classes. I worked in food services, then volunteered upstairs when they were short-handed." She touched the edge of the photograph. "There was a little girl there one night, a baby, maybe 6 or 7 months old." Dominic went completely still. Lily was 6 now. Elena continued, unaware that the men near the door had moved closer. "She had been brought in after some kind of emergency. Nobody would tell me much. She cried every time the staff put her down, so I held her while they contacted her family." Elena looked at Lily. She had a tiny birthmark behind her left ear shaped almost like a crescent. Dominic's face changed. He reached gently toward Lily and moved one curl aside. There it was, a faint crescent-shaped mark. Elena's breath caught. "That's impossible." Dominic's jaw tightened. "Why?" "Because the baby disappeared before sunrise." Elena stood slowly. A nurse told me her father had taken her home. Dominic's eyes became colder than Elena had seen all evening. I never took Lily from St. Agnes. Elena stared at him. Then who did? For the first time, Dominic looked less like a feared mafia boss and more like a father realizing someone had stolen a chapter from his daughter's life. 6 years ago, Lily and her mother were caught in a highway accident outside the city, he said. I was told Lily was treated at a private clinic for 4 hours before being brought to me. Elena shook her head. She was at St. Agnes almost the entire night. Dominic looked back at the photograph. Who took this? I don't know. Elena remembered something else and felt cold all over. But a man came into the ward just before midnight. Expensive suit, no visitor badge. He asked me whether the baby had said anything. Dominic frowned. She was an infant. That's exactly why I thought he was strange. Lily squeezed Elena's fingers harder. Dominic noticed immediately. His expression softened only for his daughter, then unexpectedly for Elena too. Sit down, he said. Elena stiffened. I'm working. You're shaking. She looked at her hand and realized he was right. Dominic pulled out the chair beside Lily instead of ordering her into it. Please. That single word surprised everyone more than his earlier command. Elena sat. Lily immediately leaned against her arm. Dominic remained across from them, studying Elena with guarded intensity. Why does she have your photograph? He asked. Elena looked at the locket again. I don't know. Lily suddenly lifted her head. Grandma gave it to me. Dominic's eyes snapped toward her. Which grandma? Lily seemed confused. The grandma who visits me when you're working late. Every trace of warmth disappeared from Dominic's face. Elena saw one of his bodyguards reach for his phone. Dominic leaned toward his daughter. Lily, both of your grandmothers are dead. Lily frowned, then pointed toward the restaurant's front windows. No, Daddy. She's outside. Dominic and Elena turned at the same time, but the woman standing across the street was already walking away. Get Lily away from the window. Dominic's voice changed so suddenly that Elena felt the entire room tighten around him. 1 second he had been a father staring at the woman his daughter called grandma, and the next he was the mafia boss people feared enough to cross streets for. One bodyguard moved Lily behind a marble column, while the other rushed through Bellavita's front doors, but by the time he reached the sidewalk, the gray-haired woman was gone. No cab pulling away. No hurried footsteps. Nothing except evening traffic, glowing beneath the restaurant's golden lights. Dominic turned toward Elena. You're coming with us. Elena's back straightened. No, I'm finishing my shift. Then I'm going home. Someone who knew about you 6 years ago just appeared outside a restaurant where my daughter recognized you. His gaze settled on her with controlled intensity. That stopped being a coincidence. Elena hated that he was right, but she hated even more how quickly fear was replacing the ordinary problems she understood. Rent, bills, her mother's medication. Those were real problems with numbers attached. Mysterious photographs and strangers watching children belonged to another world, Dominic's world, and Elena wanted no part of it. Before she could answer, a tall, silver-haired man in a charcoal suit entered through the private entrance near the bar. Dominic's expression hardened. Victor Moretti was Dominic's uncle, his late father's younger brother, and for nearly 2 decades he had served as one of the family's most trusted advisors. He had also supervised Lily's security since the death of her mother. Victor approached with the calm confidence of someone accustomed to entering dangerous rooms without permission. His eyes moved over Lily, then Elena, then the open locket. I came as soon as I heard. Dominic's stare sharpened. Heard what? Victor paused for half a second too long. That Lily had caused a scene. Elena noticed it. So did Dominic. Nobody had called him in front of her. Victor recovered quickly and smiled at Lily. Come here, sweetheart. Lily did not move. Instead, she pressed closer to Elena's side. Victor's smile faded. Dominic, children attach themselves to people. This woman resembles someone Lily may have seen in an old picture. That does not make her important. Elena felt the familiar sting of being reduced to this woman, someone disposable enough to discuss while she stood 3 feet away. Dominic's eyes turned cold. Her name is Elena Brooks. Victor looked at him. Excuse me? Use it. Elena's heart gave an unexpected beat. Victor studied Dominic, then Elena with new suspicion. Fine. Elena Brooks. How much do you want? Elena stared at him. For what? To disappear before Lily becomes more confused. Dominic stepped between them before Elena could answer. It was subtle, only half a step, but suddenly his broad frame blocked Victor's direct line to her. Don't insult her again. Victor lowered his voice. You know nothing about her. Neither do you. Yet you brought money into the conversation. Dominic's words were quiet and dangerous. That tells me more about you than it does about her. Elena should have felt protected. Instead, her phone vibrated inside her apron. She glanced down, and the blood drained from her face. A photograph filled the screen. Her mother, Ruth Brooks, stood outside a Queen's pharmacy holding a paper bag, unaware that someone had photographed her from across the street less than 20 minutes earlier. Beneath it was one sentence. Walk away from Moretti before your mother pays for your curiosity. Elena locked the screen instantly. I have to go. Dominic noticed her shaking fingers. What happened? Nothing. Elena, I said nothing. She grabbed her purse from beneath the service station and headed toward the employee's hallway. Dominic followed, but stopped several feet behind her instead of grabbing her. I'm not going to force you to tell me. She turned, surprised. His face remained hard, but his voice softened. But whatever scared you happened after Victor arrived. Elena looked past him. Victor stood near the table, speaking quietly into his phone. My mother is alone. Dominic understood immediately. Show me. Elena hesitated, then handed him the phone. He read the message once. His jaw tightened. One of my men will bring your mother somewhere safe. No, Elena, they know where she buys medicine, and if your people showing up makes whoever this is panic. Her eyes filled, but she refused to let the tears fall. I spent years taking care of her. I won't turn her life into collateral damage because your family has secrets. Dominic looked at her for several seconds. For once, he had no command ready. Then he handed the phone back. You choose how we protect her. The words hit Elena harder than an order would have. He was giving her control. One car, she said. No guns where she can see them. Tell her they're private security from the restaurant. Dominic nodded. Done. Behind them, Lily suddenly called out, Daddy. One of the bodyguards was holding a tablet, his face grim. Mr. Moretti, we found something in an archived St. Agnes security file. Dominic walked back with Elena beside him. The screen showed grainy footage dated 6 years earlier. A hospital service corridor, 2:13 a.m. Elena appeared on camera wearing the same cardigan from Lily's photograph. In her arms was a crying infant wrapped in a pale blanket. Elena stopped breathing. On the video, her younger self pushed open an emergency exit and carried the baby outside. Dominic stared at the screen, then slowly looked at her. You told me Lily disappeared before sunrise. Elena's voice barely came out. She did. The bodyguard tapped the screen again. There's more. A second figure appeared behind Elena in the footage. Victor Moretti. That footage is wrong. Elena's voice came out barely above a whisper, but Dominic heard the fear beneath it. On the tablet, her younger self carried baby Lily through the emergency exit, while Victor Moretti followed less than 10 feet behind. Victor's face hardened. Old security footage proves nothing. Dominic turned toward his uncle. Then explain why you were there. Victor adjusted his cuff as if they were discussing business. Your wife had just been in an accident. I was trying to find your daughter. You told me Lily never entered St. Agnes. Dominic's voice remained controlled, which somehow made it more threatening. For 6 years, you told me she went directly to a private clinic. Lily gripped Elena's hand. Elena could feel the child trembling, so she crouched beside her despite her own racing heart. "Hey, look at me," Elena whispered. "Whatever happened that night, you're safe right now." Lily nodded and leaned closer. Dominic watched Elena comfort his daughter, while his uncle stood only a few yards away, and something shifted behind his eyes. He had spent years paying guards, installing cameras, controlling every possible danger around Lily, yet the person making her feel safest was a waitress he had met less than an hour ago. "Play the rest," Dominic ordered. The bodyguard advanced the footage. Elena emerged into the hospital's loading area carrying Lily. Rain fell heavily under the security lights. A dark sedan waited beside the curb. Elena suddenly stopped. A man stepped from the vehicle and reached for the baby. On screen, Elena pulled Lily against her chest and backed away. "I remember," Elena said. Her face went pale. "That man told me he was her uncle. He had paperwork." Victor's jaw tightened. "You were confused." Elena looked directly at him. "No, I was scared." The memory returned in pieces. A nurse had asked Elena to carry the crying baby downstairs because the staff was overwhelmed. A man outside had shown documents claiming he was authorized to take her, but when he reached for Lily, Elena noticed something strange. "He called her Olivia," Elena whispered. Dominic's head snapped toward her. "What?" "The papers," said Lily Moretti, "but he called her Olivia." Elena stared at the screen. "So I refused to hand her over." The footage confirmed it. Younger Elena turned and hurried toward the door, but Victor intercepted her. Then the video skipped forward 18 minutes. Dominic's bodyguard frowned. "Someone deleted part of the recording." Victor stepped toward the tablet. "This has gone far enough." Dominic moved between him and the screen. "You don't decide that anymore." Victor's expression finally cracked. "Everything I did was for this family." "That sentence usually comes before a confession." Dominic's gaze became ice. Victor said nothing. Elena suddenly remembered what happened after the missing 18 minutes. "You told me you were her grandfather." Victor looked at her sharply. "You said Dominic Moretti had enemies everywhere, and that you were taking the baby somewhere safe." Her voice shook with anger now. "You made me believe I was helping her." Dominic turned slowly toward Victor. "You took my daughter from her? I protected Lily." "From me?" "From the war you were creating." Victor's calm disappeared. "Your wife wanted out, Dominic. She had documents connecting rival families to people inside our own organization. She was planning to take Lily and disappear." Dominic went completely still at the mention of his late wife, Sophia. "My wife died in that accident." Victor looked away. That single movement was enough. Dominic stepped closer. "Was it an accident?" Lily whimpered, and Elena immediately stood between the child and the adults. "Not in front of her." Dominic stopped. The Mafia Boss, who could silence a room with one look, obeyed the waitress without argument. He crouched in front of Lily. "Marco is going to take you to the private dining room for a minute, okay?" Lily clung to Elena. "She comes too." Elena looked at Dominic. He nodded. "She comes too." But as Elena began walking with Lily, Victor spoke behind them. "Ask her what happened during those 18 missing minutes." Elena froze. Dominic looked at her. "What does he mean?" Victor smiled without warmth. "She didn't just refuse to hand Lily over. She stole something from the man at the car." Elena's hand instinctively went to the small scar near her wrist, a mark she had carried for 6 years without thinking about it. Then she remembered the envelope. She remembered hiding it inside her old cardigan before Victor arrived. She remembered bringing it home, terrified, and locking it inside a box she had never opened because a note on the front warned that people could die if the contents were discovered. "Oh God," Elena whispered. Dominic moved toward her, but stopped when he saw panic in her face. "Elena, what did you take?" She looked at him, tears bright in her eyes. "I still have it." Victor's face lost all color. Dominic noticed. Elena did too. And suddenly she understood why someone had photographed her mother tonight. They were not trying to scare Elena away because Lily had called her mom. They were trying to reach something Elena had unknowingly protected for 6 years. Dominic lowered his voice. "Where is it?" Elena swallowed. "At my mother's apartment." At that exact moment, Dominic's phone rang. He answered, listened for 3 seconds, and his expression turned deadly. "What happened?" Elena asked. Dominic looked at her. "The security team reached your mother's building." Elena's breath stopped. "And?" Dominic's eyes locked onto hers. "Her apartment door is open." Part 5. Climax build, plus confrontation. Dominic was already moving before Elena found her voice. "Marco, take Lily to the safe room. 2 guards stay with her. Nobody enters unless I authorize it." Lily grabbed Elena's hand. "Mom, don't go." The word hit differently now. No longer strange, only frightened. Elena knelt and held the little girl's face gently. "I'm coming back. I promise." Dominic watched her make that promise, with tears in her eyes and fear running through every breath. Then, Elena stood. "I'm going with you." "No." Dominic's answer came instantly. "That message was sent to you. Whoever opened your mother's door wants you there." "Exactly." She stepped closer until barely a foot separated them. "And the envelope is mine. I know where I hid it." Dominic stared at her, caught between the instinct to protect her and the realization that protection without choice was just another kind of control. Finally, he nodded. "You stay beside me." Elena lifted her chin. "Not behind you." For the first time that night, something almost warm entered Dominic's eyes. "Beside me." 22 minutes later, a black SUV stopped outside Ruth Brooks's brick apartment building in Queens. Rain had started again, turning the sidewalks silver beneath the streetlights. Dominic stepped out first, his coat dark against the storm, then opened Elena's door himself. 2 security men moved ahead. Elena hurried upstairs, heart pounding harder with every step. Her mother's apartment door stood open exactly as Dominic had been told. "Mom?" Elena called. No answer. The living room had been searched. Couch cushions lay on the floor. Kitchen drawers hung open. Framed photographs had been knocked from the shelves. Elena rushed toward the bedroom, but Dominic caught her arm lightly. "Wait." She looked at his hand. He immediately released her. "Let them clear it." 10 unbearable seconds later, 1 guard called from the hallway. "Safe." Elena ran inside. "Mom?" A faint voice answered from the bathroom. "Elena?" Ruth emerged, trembling but unharmed, clutching a towel around her shoulders. Elena crossed the room and wrapped both arms around her. "What happened?" Ruth looked confused. "A man knocked and said there was a gas leak. When I stepped into the hallway, another man came upstairs. I hid in Mrs. Alvarez's apartment until they left." Elena closed her eyes in relief. Dominic remained near the doorway, giving mother and daughter space. Ruth noticed him. "Who is that?" Elena glanced over her shoulder. "Someone helping us." Dominic's expression softened at the words. Then Elena remembered the envelope. She hurried to the bedroom closet, pulled out an old storage box, and removed the faded cardigan from 6 years ago. Sewn into its lining was a flat plastic pouch. Victor had never known where she hid it. Elena tore the stitches open. Inside were 3 things: a flash drive, a handwritten list of names, and a sealed letter addressed to Dominic Moretti. Dominic stopped breathing when he recognized the handwriting. "Sophia." Elena handed him the letter. His fingers, steady in every dangerous room he had ever entered, shook once before opening it. He read quickly. Then his face changed. "What does it say?" Elena asked. Dominic looked up. "My wife knew someone inside my family was selling information to a rival group. She collected proof because she wanted Lily out before the betrayal turned violent." His eyes dropped to the final lines. She trusted one person to deliver this to me if anything happened. Elena looked at the name written beneath the letter. Victor Moretti. A sound came from the hallway. One of Dominic's guards entered. Sir, Victor is downstairs. Dominic's head lifted. Alone? He says yes. Dominic gave a humorless smile. Then he's lying. Moments later, Victor walked into the apartment with 4 men behind him. Elena immediately moved closer to Ruth. Dominic stepped between them and Victor. You came for the drive. Victor looked at the envelope in Dominic's hand. Give it to me. And this ends. 6 years ago, Sophia trusted you. Dominic's voice was quiet. You intercepted her evidence, moved Lily without my knowledge, and built a lie around that night. Victor's face hardened. I kept this family alive. You kept yourself powerful. Victor's gaze shifted to Elena. She is the reason this became complicated. A waitress who happened to be in the wrong hallway. Dominic moved 1 step, blocking his view of her completely. Her name is Elena. Victor laughed bitterly. You're willing to fracture everything your father built over her. Dominic looked back at Elena, at the woman who had protected his daughter before knowing his name, who had kept evidence safe for 6 years without asking for reward, who had faced threats without surrendering her dignity. No, he said. I'm willing to destroy what was built on betrayal. Victor's expression turned cold. Then you leave me no choice. But Elena stepped around Dominic before he could stop her. She held up the flash drive. Actually, you don't have one. Victor stared at it. Elena's hand trembled, but her voice did not. Before we came upstairs, I sent a copy to Dominic's attorney and another to a secure account. Dominic looked at her sharply. He had not known. Elena met Victor's eyes. You spent 6 years assuming I was too ordinary to matter. That was your mistake. Victor took a step toward her, but Dominic moved instantly between them. 1 more step. The room froze. Then Dominic's phone rang. Marco's voice came through the speaker. Urgent. Sir, we have a problem. Someone just entered the restaurant's private safe room. Dominic's face drained of color. Lily. Elena whispered, and from the phone came the sound that made both of them stop breathing. Lily screaming Elena's name. Dominic did not hesitate. Marco, lock the east corridor and keep the line open. He turned toward Victor, and something in his expression made even Victor's 4 men step back. You planned this. Victor gave the smallest shrug. I planned for possibilities. Elena's stomach dropped. Who is with Lily? Someone who understands that children are useful leverage. Dominic moved so quickly that Victor barely had time to react, but Elena caught Dominic's sleeve. Don't. He looked at her as if she had asked him to ignore a fire. Lily needs you thinking, not angry. For 1 second, the Mafia Boss disappeared, and Elena saw only a terrified father. Then Dominic breathed once and pulled out his phone. Marco, describe what you see. Static crackled through the speaker. The safe room door was opened with an employee access card. Lily ran into the service corridor. We lost visual for 12 seconds. Elena's eyes widened. The service corridor. Dominic turned to her. What? Bellavita's old wine storage connects to the pastry kitchen. There's a narrow supply closet behind the linen shelves. Lily saw me go in there earlier when I brought her strawberries. Dominic understood immediately. Marco, check the linen closet. Footsteps thundered through the phone. Then they heard Lily crying. Daddy? Dominic closed his eyes for half a second. I'm here, sweetheart. The lady tried to take me. Elena leaned toward the phone. Lily, are you inside the closet? Yes. Stay there until Marco says your name. Don't open it for anyone else. Okay, Mom. Elena's throat tightened, but this time she did not correct her. Seconds later, Marco's voice returned. We have her. She's safe. Dominic's shoulders lowered by barely an inch, but Elena saw the relief flood through him. And the intruder? Caught near the kitchen exit. It's the woman Lily called Grandma. Victor's face finally changed. Dominic noticed. "Bring her somewhere secure and call my attorney. Everything goes through legal channels from now on." Victor laughed bitterly. "You think one frightened woman will prove anything?" Elena lifted Sophia's letter. "No, but this will." She looked toward Dominic's security man holding the flash drive. "And so will the records you spent 6 years trying to erase." Victor stared at her with open contempt. "You have no idea what you've stepped into." Elena's hands were still trembling, but she stepped beside Dominic rather than behind him. "Maybe not, but I know what I'm stepping out of." Victor frowned. "Fear." Dominic looked at her, and for the first time that night, Elena did not feel like a waitress being rescued by a powerful man. She felt like someone standing in her own truth. Dominic's men separated Victor from the others without violence. Before sunrise, copies of Sophia's evidence were delivered to Dominic's attorneys and the appropriate authorities. Victor's network began unraveling almost immediately, and the woman Lily had called Grandma finally confessed that she had been a nurse at St. Agnes 6 years earlier. Victor had paid her to remain silent about Lily's missing hospital records. Years later, guilt had driven her to approach Lily in secret. She had given the child the locket because she believed Elena was the only innocent person from that night Lily might someday trust. Inside the locket, hidden beneath the photograph, was a tiny folded note Elena had never seen. Dominic opened it the next morning. Sophia's handwriting covered only 2 lines. "If Lily ever feels alone, remind her there was a stranger who held her all night when she was afraid." Her name was Elena. Elena read the note twice before tears slipped down her cheeks. "That's why she recognized me." Dominic stood across from her in the quiet living room of his Manhattan home, morning sunlight replacing the darkness that had followed them all night. "She didn't recognize your face first," he said. "She recognized how you made her feel." Lily came running from the hallway and wrapped herself around Elena's waist. "Safe," she said simply. Elena closed her eyes. For years, people had made her feel as though she should apologize for being noticeable, for being soft, for being bigger than the space others wanted to give her. Lily held her as if Elena were exactly the size a safe place should be. Dominic approached slowly. He removed his coat and placed it around Elena's shoulders, because she was still wearing her thin restaurant uniform. "You don't have to stay because Lily wants you here," he said. Elena looked up. "And you?" His voice softened. "I want you here too. But I'm asking, not deciding." Months passed. Elena kept working until she chose to leave Bella Vita on her own terms, later helping Ruth open the small neighborhood bakery she had dreamed about for years. Dominic did not buy Elena a new identity, change her clothes, or try to turn her into someone who belonged in his world. He simply made room for her in his life exactly as she was. And Elena, slowly, made room for him too. He learned to speak instead of command when it mattered. She learned that being protected did not require surrendering her independence. Lily stopped calling Elena Mom every day, not because the bond faded, but because Elena asked her to save that word until it truly felt right. Nearly a year after the blind date that changed everything, Dominic brought Elena and Lily back to Bella Vita. The same golden lights glowed above table 12. This time, Elena was not carrying a tray. Dominic took her hand openly in front of everyone. Lily climbed onto her chair, grinning. "Can I say it now?" Elena laughed through tears. "Say what?" Lily looked between them. "Mom?" Elena pulled her close. Dominic lowered his forehead to Elena's and smiled. A rare, quiet smile meant only for her. The woman who had once been told she took up too much space had finally found people who never wanted her to shrink at all. And the Mafia Boss who believed love was a weakness discovered that choosing someone with tenderness could require more courage than ruling through fear. Sometimes family begins with blood. Sometimes it begins with one frightened child recognizing the person who once made her feel safe. And sometimes the person everyone overlooks becomes the one nobody can imagine living without. If you were Elena, would you have trusted Dominic after everything that happened that night? Tell us in the comments. and subscribe to the channel for more emotional Mafia Boss stories where danger may open the door, but love decides who gets to stay.